work in advertising with WPP and media agencies, and attending offsites and corporate sessions and understanding how the industry worked in terms of mergers, acquisitions, and the different roles of different functions of marketing, PR agencies, creative industries, digital agencies, was very much a world that I knew very well. And last year I spoke at what's called an independent network. Independent agencies are part of a global network, and they held their catch-up in Dubai from all over the world, Tribal Global, and friends of mine have an agency called Fusion 5, they were there, and also this week's guest in his agency, Lightblue, they were there as well. I tell that story because that event that they were able to put together is something that we always aspired to do with our company. And tomorrow, on Thursday, which is why this is a pre-record, we're taking 80 people from across all our offices across the region, and all our team from Qatar, from Bahrain, and then our big offices in Cairo and Riyadh and Dubai. So we're all going to the north coast of Egypt, Sahel, and we're going to spend 4 days together, including a Love in Cairo turns one party. So it's very much part of the sort of media creative industry to be able to bring people together across offices, and part of the culture and the growth of the company. It's something that we're massively looking forward to, and it's hence the pre-record, but do enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week, we'll be speaking to David Balfour. He is the co-founder of Lightblue. They are a creative experience agency that has been the mastermind behind some of the biggest stunts and activations in Dubai. We'll hear all about how David and his co-founder started Lightblue, the creative industry in the UAE, in Dubai, and are looking ahead to the future of their plans. So, hi, David.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
And so tell us a little bit about Lightblue.
So October will be 16 years old. I started the agency with who used to be my boss, actually. He was the managing creative partner at another agency. So I've been in the region for 19 years. And as all great agencies are created in the back of a cigarette packet. And that's exactly what we did 16 years ago. We are a creative experience agency. We look after creative services, brand activations, live digital experiences. We create new IPs, and creating content for clients.
There's a lot in that. I wanted to kind of touch on when you mentioned creating IP for brands, but on the back of a cigarette pack, like, what did you write down?
It was being very Scottish here. Freedom.
Okay.
I think the ability to answer a brief from a client without the expectations from a bigger agency or a networked agency is understanding that you don't have to drive that client down certain channels. So media, out of home, where traditionally the agency will make their money in those parts. We very much looked at what is right for the brand, what's right for the consumers, and how do we create that journey, and what's the narrative for both. How does that brand and the journey and the consumer connects better? So I think that was a key thing for us. So being free was really good in that sense.
Okay, amazing. And did you study advertising? Were you how did you get into this, and how did you start working? Were you working in a creative agency yourself?
I was, yeah. So, being from Glasgow, traditionally in Scotland, you have only certain big players. I was actually, I went to university twice. The first time was to do sports technology.
Sports technology.
Yeah.
That'd be good today, wouldn't it?
That would be great, right? I was a failed footballer. I got petrol money from a League One team, and I decided this isn't good enough, And then
that's Scottish League One.
So Scottish League One.
So almost that's professional still.
Semi-professional. And I decided I'm going to take a year out. after doing 3 months of sports technology. It wasn't for me. I knew straight away. My neighbor had his own agency, and he was just pretty much at that startup mode. So I got recommended, did a few jobs for him, got into the know-hows of how things were moving within that space. And then I went to study marketing communications. In the middle of that, I got recommended to another chap who's a very good friend and mentor to me. He's now a lecturer at Edinburgh University. He started his own agency because at the same time, Bass Brewers were going through a buyout with InBev. And he was recommended to start an agency where they had a recruitment freeze. I was able to be recruited to work for Tennent's Lager. And Tennent's Lager was the first brand that I looked after for, at that time I was with the agency for 5 years. So throughout the whole period of time, I was on 13 different brands, looking after different activations from Tennent's Lager, Scottish Cup, rugby, music, Tina Park, Tina Fringe.
Festivals, yeah.
All the festival stuff. And then Stella Artois with the tennis and the big outdoor cinema. So that was my foot in.
That's how you cut your teeth and everything. And so I guess the creative advertising, because Lightblue is sort of full service experiential, and it does more than just answer a creative brief, but it sounds like that you were involved in that both sides of things from the start.
Right from the start. I was the link between the brand and the consumers. So my role at the time was, we were called brand ambassadors, which is a very different role now. But essentially it was to make sure that consumers connected with the brand at live music festivals or at football stadiums or at the tennis. So that was really the start of being, within that brand activation space.
And, when you said advertising in Scotland, I thought of a very famous name in advertising, David Ogilvy, who's originally from Scotland. And, were you, once you sort of figured out that you had a job and that you'd studied for the second time, did you then sort of have a career plan and a career path, or were you like, okay, this is me now, I'm going to be doing this for a while?
It wasn't until my father passed away that I decided, okay, so I've done 5 years at this agency. I was in Scotland, having the best time of my life. Essentially, I was doing everything I love, music, football, and looking after amazing brands. I was also traveling throughout the UK. And
you were young, you had that energy for it.
Yeah, I could wake up with a hangover and go to work. And then my father passed away, and he traveled and lived in the US, lived in Brazil, was born in Brazil. And that's really when I thought, okay, I need to see more of the world. And I applied for 2 jobs. One was in Dubai with Heineken, and one was with Glenfiddich in New York. So that was a 2 interview paths, very different locations, very different types of roles as well. And Heineken flew me out, and pretty much by the time I was getting on the plane, I got a message saying they want to offer me a role.
Wow.
And that was as quick as that.
That was your first job in Dubai, around 2005 or so?
That was 2004, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And you did that and then were you there, and did you like Dubai at the time, and sort of what were your thoughts?
I loved it. I'd been to Dubai once before, and that was in 97, 98 for an international rugby tournament. Our school represented Scotland, and we went up against, the first team was South Africa. We lost badly. And I just loved it. I thought it was really such a diverse, really cool space, and the growth of the vision that they were selling me of what Dubai is going to be. So yeah, man, absolutely.
Nice, yeah. And so how were your first few years working there, sort of pre-global financial crisis? And what was advertising like here back then?
It was very different to what it is now. I believe at the time, I mean, for us being at Heineken, we're a dark market, so there's not much we can do from an out-of-home experience.
So dark market meaning that advertising for alcoholic brands can't be,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
not prohibited.
A bit like what cigarettes is at the moment. Yeah, so there's no advertising, there's no branding. We used to use the star from the Heineken as our alibi logo at the time. Obviously, things have changed now. And that was the real reason why I decided to leave Heineken. It was 2 years in, and I was writing the same brand plan again for the second and the third year, and I just thought, okay, this is the limitations of working within the drinks industry at that time. It's changed. It's moved on massively now. We look after various different, alcohol brands, and what we can do now is we could never do back then. And I got approached by our agency as they were starting up Momentum into the region, which was a global experiential agency, offices in New York, Shanghai, London. And I thought, yeah, this is the more where I was before from an activation perspective, and it allowed me to be a little bit more creative rather than look after just one brand. And I think that's what I missed the most.
You mentioned before you had 11 or 12 brands down to one. It's just a difference, isn't it?
It's a big shift. And I loved it for that first year and a half. And then that's when you start missing the flexibility. Going back to agency land was great. I loved it. It was exciting. It was part of the MCN network. They were great with me and the team, and they kind of wished us well as we kind of moved on.
And when you say kind of we moved on, that was the cigarette package. that was the freedom piece. And so you must have set it up around 2008, 2009.
2007. Yeah, so it was just
6 years. Okay.
Yeah. So we just went into 2007. It was myself, Ian, working out of his back bedroom with a dog called Libby. And our wives would, drop off lunch and dinners at time. And he was a creative, I was client servicing, and we just worked non-stop. Our first client was PlayStation. They took a real punt.
Good first client, yeah.
Great first client. They took a real punt on us. We developed the PlayStation experience in the Mall of Emirates, and it was just, I remember vaguely now, just working 24 hours. My wife was coming, here's some clothes, go and change, you smell. So it was fun.
Yeah.
Because it was that real, we're just going to do it, whatever it takes to do what we believe is right for the brand and from an execution perspective.
And sort of, thanks for sharing that. Fast forward now, your service is sort of 16 years later. It sounds like, the world has evolved digitally, but the sort of fundamentals of experiential brand marketing are sort of still there. Is the essence of what Lightblue was back then, is it still similar in what you set out to do?
It is absolutely at the core of what we do. We've created Web3 experiences. Even the experiences within the Web3 is based on a live experience. What do consumers want? How do they want to be engaged? How can we ensure that they are interested in the product, the space, the activation? We do exactly the same online. So that's really key for us. Even so that we're redesigning our website, it's been 7 months. That's how particular we are within our own work. And I think that's what makes us different. It's I guess our secret sauce that we sprinkle across our clients. And we try to have fun. We try to make sure that whatever we're designing, whatever we're watching, really becomes an extension of us as a team. So, ensuring that we have the right type of, the right team in place with our mentality, the culture that we have within the agency is really important for us.
And how has the agency grown over the years in terms of numbers?
We've actually reduced numbers to where we were as a peak. I think COVID, that was the switch. That was for us. We had multiple different teams in client servicing, production, creative, support staff as well. We looked at the model of how and what we need to do in our space. We identified different areas within the business that was lacking, and we identified different parts of the business that wasn't functionally correct. It was a great output, but financially it didn't make sense. We then invested in a fantastic system called Accountability, which is our financial system, which allows us to track how the team operates from a billing perspective, what's a good client, what's not a particularly good revenue client. We talk about good revenue, bad revenue makes you famous. And that's how we pre-qualify. So we put in so many different processes in place, which then allows us to identify which parts of the business was more profitable that we need to dial up, and which parts of the business wasn't, and we need to make some changes.
And for your business, what is obviously what you're offering to a client, but how does that fit in terms of pitching and the types of clients that you have? For example, in marketing, some people might be familiar with experiential marketing, and it's often sort of the nice, creative, cool thing you see online, or getting the logo in other places on the back of shopping trolleys or something like that, or in nightclubs or whatever. But does that mean that you pitch for a piece of creative business and that you are on a retainer and that you work with that client all year round? Or is it more like, hey, we're a brand and we want to do something different, we have a pop-up, we have an activation, and we're going to work on an ad hoc basis?
We do both, which is great. So we have the flexibility of having clients that are long-standing clients. PlayStation, we're still working with PlayStation 16 years down the line.
Wow.
And that's not only in the UAE but across the Middle East. So recently we were in Kuwait, we're in Cairo, activating different parts of the brand. So for us, having these long-term partnerships is really key. And then we also look for the brands that are coming into market, so entry brands. So sometimes they're quite interesting to work with. We look at brands that doesn't necessarily fit our model, but then the way we approach it does. So Maastricht Bank, as a perfect example, we were part of their relaunch of their Rise Every Day perspective, their campaign. And we put our spin on it, and they love it. And we've got another campaign coming back for COP28. That is really exciting, that I can't talk too much about. So for us, there's big projects, there's smaller projects that we look at. We look at what's relevant in the market as well. So we do automotive, we do luxury and fashion, beauty, real estate. Again, it's one of those traditionally we would never have touched, but the type of client is now working within some of these real estate companies, and it's interesting for us to look at. So we're tapping into experience design centers and investor centers. So and again, we're working across the region on them.
And the output, is it usually sort of the experience, or are there sort of digital assets and video and other elements that you do as well, and event management and things like that?
Everything's connected.
Yeah.
So we would be a one-stop shop for that. We're definitely not an agency that will say, yes, we do everything. We don't. When it comes to out of home or digital marketing, we'll bring in the right partners. When it comes to PR, we'll bring in the right partners that we believe is right for that brand, and we'll make that recommendation. Sometimes we'll be asked to manage third parties, and we'll do so. And other times we'll just say, here you go, you continue the conversation. But we would suggest working with X, Y, and Z.
And what's the sort of, obviously, the pandemic, and you touched on it, I had a bit of it, there wasn't as many, hardly any life experiences.
Yeah.
But so what's your typical, what are your sort of highlight clients in the last sort of year and a half, or what are the big events that you've worked on?
Puma Soul DXB. We've been working with Puma now for 4 years. We've got a fantastic relationship with them. Julius Baer, Art Dubai.
Oh, wow.
We had Rafiq Anadol creating his Glacier of Dreams. So we had an exclusive. It was the first time anyone had seen it within Art Dubai. We worked with Glenfiddich. So we relaunched their Meta range into this market, which is their uber luxury range. And then Kirstner Group, we've been working fantastically well with Kirstner. So they are the owners of One and Only, the Atlantis, and Babasham. So we've done quite a few different projects with them of late. And there's always the new ones that come in. we really try to make sure that we are looking at our team and from a wellness perspective, in terms of we don't want to overload the team in delivering, or at least making sure that they are, from a wellness perspective, that we're looking after them. So we try to make sure that we have the right number of clients with the right team in place. And then I guess it goes back to what happened at COVID. We now use the freelance market much better than previously. And I think Dubai has changed anyway from a freelance perspective.
Yeah, I will touch on that. But just sort of, David, when you were mentioning the sort of art to buy element, one of our recent guests was Plan B Events, and they're very much more of an event management company. But they mentioned as well that they do that type of event where it's an art, where it's like Julius Baer, it's like someone like that. So how does it? So where do you step in, and where's your expertise from a creative experiential point of view versus an entity who's sort of hired to do event management?
Yeah, I think that's where we differ. So not only do we do the event management, we do the creative, we do the concept, we do the storytelling around what should be happening within the event space. So it's, from my perspective, I guess that's where we were at the start of Lightblue's journey, where we were very much in event management, depending on the client, of course. But creativity is at the heart of everything that we do. No idea is without a creative idea. So if it comes to creating a metaverse experience or a digital twin or a content piece or a live activation, everything comes from creative insights and data.
And originally, you mentioned your co-founder was a creative director or so, and you're in the client service. Have you always had a creative team, ideas people in business?
Always. And it doesn't matter what position that they're in as well, from within the business. Even finance, we have to look at, from a financial perspective, how we can be creative to ensure that we are using the right partners. How can we, it's a tough market over there for freelancers or suppliers. So how can we ensure that we are targeting them to ensure that we're getting the best in class service? So we put different models in place with our suppliers to ensure that we are then offering that to our clients.
It's part of your values, that creativity. Yeah.
So even our client servicing team, they do a creative brief before joining us. So as part of the interview process, we try to understand them as much as possible to see, okay, what's your writing style? What kind of look do you like? We ask certain questions such as, who you're following, who inspires you, what makes you tick? So for us, culture within the team and being creative team is very much at, everything that we do.
And yeah, that's interesting on talent. And you mentioned freelancers as well, but you're an example of someone who entity here saw that was talented and doing something well in that industry in another market and brought them over. Has that changed? Or do you still look to recruit internationally? Or are you finding more talent from universities and other agencies here or within the region as time has gone on?
I think currently we are 13 different nationalities. We speak about 15 different languages within the team as we speak. We have new people joining us. Actually, I think the next one's on Monday from the UK. He used to work with us 5 years ago. He's coming back to the region. He wants to come back to us, which is great. Local talent has massively increased, and for the better for us, especially from a creative perspective. We can see a lot more creatives, not just the traditional creatives in terms of art directors, graphic designers, but multimedia designers, and it's been a real influx. So motion designers, designers who are maybe ex-architects who are coming into creating spatial designs for us. So we're looking right across the board, and what's really interesting is the mix of how it ticks. So we have some artists within the team that will then work with an architect to create an experience. And that's really when it ticks. That's really when we're seeing something new and something different that the market has been used to, rather than the traditional channels of creating an experience.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're doing some of the examples that you gave, like say a Soul DXB, or you're probably given a space, uh, meter by meter or whatever it is, and you can activate whatever you want there. Usually, interior architects are people who understand how to plan buildings and interior design are the ones who would do that. So you obviously need to work with different talents for different pieces of work.
Absolutely. And I think that's really when it really connects with the team, having an artist, having an architect, a production manager, a senior production manager, or a director in those conversations from day one. And then, adding in the senior team, myself or Craig, who's a partner in the business, and then using our knowledge of what works from a consumer movement perspective, and really understanding. Soul DXB is a perfect example. Throughout Soul, there's different types of consumers that are coming in between, the morning schedule, the afternoon schedule, the nighttime, but it's the same space. But the space has to evolve, has to change to accommodate the different type of consumers that we've got within that space. So we don't want something crazy during the day because no one's going to see anything during the day. So we have to create a different type of experience in the day to attract our consumers. And then the nighttime, visually, we have to change, using lighting effects or different materials that allows us to really stand out.
Do you think that, something like Soul DXB, or I was just recently in Al Ula, and, we often see brand activations in different parts of the region, and I'm always blown away by the quality and the experience that customers and people attending feel when they go. Like, do you think that we're on par as other cities around the world?
Absolutely. Sometimes actually I think that we are way ahead of other markets. We delivered 2 different activations in the US and in the last couple of years. One was for Montclair, launching their House of Genius in LA, and that was at Maxfields, which is an unbelievable store. And we created this experience, designed it, worked with the team in Milan, the team in New York, and looking at production prices vary in the US. So even when we delivered something at CES in Vegas, that was again a different price point because that was in Urbana rather than in California. So we had to understand those bylaws in the US, but the production levels of what can be achieved in this market is much greater than any other market that I've ever worked in. And we've launched April Spritz in the UK. We worked on April Spritz for 3 to 4 years across multiple different music festivals, fringe festivals. We were at Edinburgh Fringe and then in Brighton, and
all the different
music kind of events throughout those 4 years. The production level here is much better.
In terms of because obviously it's not a manufacturing country, but you kind of mentioned earlier that you might have had people on production and other events companies do the joinery themselves. But do you mean that the price point is there, or is just the scale of ideas and the kind of blank canvas that...
It's the scale of the ideas of what we can do. A great example would be, when we launched PlayStation 5, we had 2 skydivers jump from the Burj Khalifa, going around the Burj Khalifa at night time, flying through the Address Hotel, landing on Shakespeare Road.
Wow.
Can you imagine the permits you'd have to do for that to happen in London or Paris?
Or New York? Wouldn't be possible.
It just wouldn't happen. It was bad enough putting an event on in the car park where we had Summer Walker coming to perform on stage, and we created this stage in the car park. It was ridiculous, the level of permits that you had to go to and the hours of sitting in these offices and trying to explain to them it's not a live concert, it's just an activation, and this is what we're doing, and we're showcasing all these different examples. That's the difference. We can do things. Nothing is impossible in this market, be it in Egypt, Kuwait, Saudi, or here.
And the way, the reason why we know you're not just saying this because it's your business is the way
things go viral internationally from here. Like we see it, it's evidence. Every week there's always evidence of the rest of the world going, hang on, wow, look what happened there. But David, do you ever kind of, on the flip side of that, do you ever go to an event the day before and go, uh-oh, is there anything a bit last minute that you go, uh-oh, what we had on paper sort of isn't ready yet?
It happens. It's live events. We're used to this. And I've got a fantastic team that are calm. And I think that's the biggest asset we have to Lightblue is the team. We wouldn't be where we are without them, the culture that they've built within themselves. We know there's something going to go wrong. It's live events. It's impossible for absolutely everything to be perfect. It might be a slight change in creative. Might have to do some quick adapts for social media for our clients or content creation. Or it could be, we've got His Royal Highness attending and something's been delayed. He might not be necessarily on the scheduled time.
Protocol changes, yeah.
Protocol changes, we have to do a bomb sweep at a certain time and things have been pushed back. So we might have 500 guests waiting somewhere and they might be waiting an hour, they might be waiting 5 minutes. So we have to be flexible enough to understand live events are difficult. It's about being calm.
And what's the biggest disruption to your industry, your business over the last decade or so? Is it digital? Is it this change in how people work, work remotely and things like that? Or is it that investment budgets are going in different areas? What's the biggest changes?
I think the expectation levels of, can we do this for this price point? That's the tough conversation with clients.
It's worse now than it was?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely got harder, which means that we have to be smarter. We have to ensure that we're designing from a creative perspective, it looks visually stunning. From an engagement perspective, we have to make sure that we are addressing all the different elements that needs to be done to make a live experience tick. Freelance resource has been amazing for us. So we utilize that very well. We have some great partners for that. Digital has always been part of our conversation. Since day one, I think 13 years ago, we had our first augmented reality experience with Shivas. I think we were doing something in duty free where you couldn't do any sampling. So we created an augmented reality sampling experience.
Wow.
That was 13 years ago. We were literally, fumbling in the dark at that stage with an agency in Edinburgh to pull that together. But you work with partners that you trust. Necessarily this is brand new for them to do, but we give them that trust and, we trust on them. And I think that's what works best.
And the structure, I know we interacted recently when you were part of an international network. What was the network called? Tribal, yeah. And, I kind of remember Sir Martin Sorrell, previously of WPP, saying when he's building his new entity, that it's going to be different. The number of employees might be the same, but the network agency model is different now. It mightn't have as many physical offices, but it will still have the same reach. Is that sort of a reflection of how the working world and how people are more remote these days?
Yes, I think so. I think it's also to do with the environment that you build. We are in the middle of moving offices. We've just found shiny new offices in the Maastricht Tower, actually. So our client is literally 10 floors above us, which...
too close.
Might be too close. But I think it's, we do offer a work from home policy. We do 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. I would say 70% of the agency use it, 30% don't. I'm one of those that I don't like to work from home. I like to come into the office. I like to get away from the children and any distractions of the fridge, mainly. So I think for us, it's creating this culture, creating the team environment. We have, an amazing team. Every Tuesday, Thursday, we play paddle. I think there's about 16 of us in the paddle group. So before coming to work, we go out and play paddle. We do spin, so there's a lot of the people within the agency go spinning in the morning. So we encourage and we allow people, you can come in at 9:30, you can come in at 10 o'clock, you manage your time. So I think as much as what we can do is to focus on the people. And if we can do that, then they'll come and work because they want to work together. They want to spend time in the offices. We don't tell them you have to, but this is the operating model that we have.
And is that sort of, that sounds great. I hope all my employees don't hear all that, but it sounds great. But is that sort of a little bit to sort of, allow for the fact that at times clients are going to be demanding and there will be late nights and weekend work and things like that?
Absolutely. And I think as long as we can look after the team, everything else will look after itself. We're coming into a very busy period. This is our Q3 coming in October, November, December. I think every second, third day we have a different activation going live until Christmas.
What percentage of revenue is that quarter of the year?
This year has been slightly different to last year, and even the year before. It's been quite challenging to forecast when things are going to be dropping. We have our metric systems of we know when or what things are happening throughout the year. Art Dubai, we know that happens at a certain time. SoDXP, we know that happens at a certain time. Middle Beast, we know that happens at a certain time. So, there's that base layer of, okay, we can staff up or we have our own staff. During the summer, it's very much, or pre-summer is very much a pitching season. So this is when we sit down as a team, pre-qualify, is this the right type of client? Is this the right type of opportunity for us? Is this something that we want to get involved with? Is it an interesting type of project? We then spend the next 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks working on those different pitches, pitching, delivering, being awarded hopefully, and then working it out, and for us to deliver, which then means, from an operational perspective, okay, we need to bring in, X, Y, and Z to come and cover or run part of the scope. But
typically, like that's sort of when the weather's good here and when clients are spending what would be their Q4 budgets, typically that would be a significant chunk of business throughout the year. It's very active part.
I would say, calendar Q4 and calendar Q3 is the peak season. Going into calendar Q1, you then have a bit of a dip, especially because of Ramadan. So January, Feb this year, we've seen it already, lots of different conversations we're having with clients. Looks busy, and then Ramadan will hit, nothing will hit in the back of that. And I think that's what we've seen this year. It was everyone crammed everything in before Ramadan this year. And then after Ramadan, it was too close to summer. So the weather starts changing. So depending on the type of activations that you want to do, and this is only from a live experience perspective, not creative. Everything else kind of still runs, but from a live experience, that's the format that we see.
Yeah, and sort of on the back of the conversation around employees and freelance and that. What about expansion? You've obviously mentioned you did some work in the UK and the US. Is there a thought to be a regional agency, a global agency, to have satellite offices, or what's the sort of planning around that?
So yeah, we're actually launching our Saudi office very, very soon. So we will be in Riyadh within this quarter, essentially. We have got plans for further expansion. We actually, pre-COVID, I was making the move to Los Angeles to open up Lightblue there, and that's where we did Montclair and CES, and we picked up Charlotte Tilbury as a client, and then Culture Trip as a client, but then COVID hit.
Travel
and,
yeah,
and that's really where it was a case of my visa wasn't in place at the time. I think I need to come home before my wife divorces me.
And then COVID, and then LA doesn't happen, and it's been replaced by Riyadh.
And it's been replaced by Saudi. During COVID, Saudi was really the one that propelled us into maintaining everything that we would have lost throughout the year from a live experience. And it wasn't a case of having to pivot. It was just a case of focusing on what we do best.
And you mentioned Middle Beast, and that's music back to what you used to do.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is something that the team love. It's hard work. It's not easy. Great client to work with, the team essentially, and we deliver some great work for them.
And so over 16 years, you've remained independent, and you're part of a network. But is that by plan? Is that by design? And what are your views on that?
Absolutely by plan and design. We've been approached many times throughout the 16 years, and it's still my desire to be as independent as possible. Joining Tribe Global 7 years ago, which is an independent network of agencies, we have 54, 55 agencies and partners throughout the world. We're in 100 cities around the world. So even though, and we're all independently owned, I sit on the board. And for us, it's about, knowledge sharing rather than, here's my numbers. We've created the Tribe Academy, which is a learning platform. I mentor the Rising Stars program. So we created the Rising Stars program. We have 8 amazing people from all walks of life and backgrounds, from Portland to Belgium to Dubai. So again, we're creating and allowing them to work together. Again, I think when we first properly met was at the Tribe Open event at the TikTok Lounge. This year, we're going to be in New York. So we have our annual meeting in New York. We have our Tribe Open event again in New York. This time I'm taking the stage. So I'm going to be one of the panel speakers. We have some amazing speakers from Meta coming in as well. So it allows us to really, share knowledge within the industry, be it AI, live experiences, direct marketing, out of home, whatever it may be.
And it sounds like with the language that you use and the way that you're an independent agency as part of a global network, it sounds like the traditional setup of the advertising business is alive and well.
Yes, no, for sure. I think there's enough competition for this market to keep us at the top of our game. Absolutely, I think, and we thrive on competition. We want our agencies that we compete against, on pitches, to get better because that makes us better. We hate losing. We hate losing a pitch. It's not part of our DNA. We will go back and review, and we'll try to get as much information to reason why we might have lost a pitch, and we'll use that to make us better. So for us, the opportunity now, even going into Saudi, where the talent pool of agencies that we're pitching against is not just from this region, but they're international agencies now. So it's got harder, it's got tougher, which means we have to get better. We have to really align ourselves internally to go, do we have the right team? Do we have the right personnel within Lightblue as it is for us to deliver this type of work at this level? Because we want to progress, we want to do bigger and better. And for that to happen, we need to ensure that we have the best team.
Do you think that, are you bullish about the region? And do you think that the maturity of your agency is an advantage or disadvantage as we look at the opportunities of the next decade?
I think the region is absolutely thriving. It's just at which vertical is it thriving in? I think within our space, it's got tougher because there's blurred lines between agencies and the type of agencies that want to get involved because they see, the sexy images online and the big activations, and I can hear the conversations down the halls and the big networks understanding going, why are we not doing this? Why we're just doing this? So the competition's got bigger. And I think now, specifically in Saudi Arabia, the type of brands and the type of communications and the consumer, because of the age of the consumers in Saudi, really allows us to dial up as well. There's a real want and desire to be first to market, exploring new technologies and having fun. I think that's, for us, the exciting element is let's have fun.
Brilliant. Well, really positive note to finish on. And it sounds like you're going places in the region. Best of luck in Saudi, and we'll follow Lightblue as the busy season takes place.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Another company, we've had a few like David and Lightblue in the last couple of episodes who've sort of the SME backbone of the UAE, that they've been here, Dubai in particular, for 10, 15 years, doing their thing and doing great work and being recognized globally. So those are the companies that are sort of rising as the city rises as well. So thank you to David for sharing that as well. Thank you to our producers, Shahir and Ali, who always put the show together. It's available as an audio on Dubai Works Business Podcasts across Apple, Angami and Spotify and other channels. They also are producers for video, so you can watch it on smashy.tv on web, but you can also download it on your smart TV devices or on your apps. We've just launched our second full season of streaming local UAE sports for futsal, volleyball, handball, and we're really excited to announce that we've just added basketball, the Vice President's Cup, taking place from the 2nd to the 17th of September across the UAE. So that's streaming right now. There's a 30% early bird season ticket discount available for the year. You can snap that one up, and we'll be back next week at 11 o'clock on Friday morning for a live show, and it'll go out on Friday afternoon as a podcast, and then there'll be article in Lovin Dubai about this episode on Saturdays as usual. Do follow Smashy Business for the tech stories on Instagram. This is of course a Smashy Business production as part of the Augustus Media Podcast Network.